Summit, Virtual Summit 2024, and this is a keynote session of yours, and on the International Women's Week. So let's all welcome Dr. Sandee, sorry, Sandee Sagatula. So, Melinda,
Sgarlata.
sorry, what's that?
I said it's Sgarlata.
Scarlata. Sorry about the Scarlata, Sandy. So let me go with the first name, Sandy. Okay, and Melinda will be introducing you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, it is with great pleasure that I welcome to the stage the remarkable Sandee Sgarlata, a true force to be reckoned with. Sandee's illustrious career spans across multiple fields, from her incredible achievements as a two-time award-winning author and certified life coach to her impressive tenure as a retired U.S. national and international figure skating coach, where she proudly earned a gold medal in ice dancing. So, with over 30 years of corporate experience under her belt and a reputation for authenticity and motivation, Sandy has been instrumental in guiding countless individuals towards lasting positive change in their lives. But her contributions don't stop there. Sandy's passion for uplifting others extends to the airwaves, where she hosts the immensely popular Happiness Solved podcast, ranked in the top 0.5% globally, and serves as a managing director for the Los Angeles Tribune Global Podcast Network. Her best selling book, Happiness Solved Climbing 100 Steps, not only offers profound insights but also serves as a practical workbook for personal growth. As a peak performance coach and founder of the Peak Performance Mindset Academy, Sandy continues to empower individuals to through group coaching programs, online courses, and one on one coaching sessions. Her expertise has garnered attention from esteemed media outlets and platforms worldwide, cementing her status as a respected thought leader in the realm of personal development. So please join me in giving a warm round of applause to the incomparable Sandy Sagatla.
Thank you
So
so
that's
much,
really
Melinda.
so many achievements in one introduction. So it's really great to, we are so honored that you are sharing your presentations with the Virtual Summit 2024. So yes, you can start your presentation. Good luck.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you to Win the virtual summit. I've been so excited about this, and I signed up like a year ago. And so I've kind of shifted a little bit, and I'm going to tell you about that as we get going. But first of all, how's everybody doing? If you can let me know in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10, because this is going to be such an important conversation, because today I'm going to be talking with you about how to discover your zone of genius. All right, I'm glad to see some of the 10s in there. That's awesome. So before I dive in, I'd like to just take a moment to share a little bit about how I discovered my zone of genius. So it was, it's funny when you hear your bio being read, it's like, yeah, that's all great. Those are all the accolades, but it doesn't really dive into what we really go through in life, right? And the struggles that we face. And so, my story began primarily in 1990 when I found myself hitting complete rock bottom. And so I got my act together. And since that time, it's been 34 years, I've been a complete self-help junkie. And I'm so grateful for that. So I was in the speaking realm, got certified to be a life coach, became an international and US national, goal figure skating coach. I did all of those great things. And I was really building this incredible presence. But it was very different back then. This was all in person. Everything was in person. There was no virtual anything, very little, if that. Well, then I ended up going through a divorce in 2011 and 2012. And I just walked away from the personal development space because I was a single mother of a 13-year-old little boy. And I had to, when you have that, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who have, who have been a single mother, you end up in this whole space of survival, and you've got to survive. And it was very difficult for me. I went back into corporate America, experienced a lot of challenges. And it wasn't until 2019 when I was dropping my son off at college that the floodgates opened up and I started writing my book, Happiness Solved, Climbing 100 Steps. And I reached a point in my life where it was like, I was so disgusted with humanity on a global scale, especially here in the United States. And I'm sure you all know, because there's a lot of people watching globally, there's a lot of division here in the United States. It's not as bad as maybe the media is making it out to be. It's still there though. And when your message is so much bigger than you are, I got pulled back into the personal development space. And I'm so grateful for that. But I had no intention of ever writing a book. I had a blog talk radio show from 2008 to 2010. And when I was launching my book, I had some business coaches that said, hey, why don't you launch a podcast? I'm like, all right, I love talking to people. And the great thing about having a podcast is I get to have amazing conversations with people that I don't normally get to have that conversation with. And what ended up happening was in January of 2023, I kind of hit another bottom in my life. It wasn't as bad as 34 years ago, but what happened was as I found out that I thought I was really depressed, but what it was I was burnt out, and I had never experienced being burnt out before because I'm a high performer. I accomplish so many things. I've just got this determination that just keeps me going and going and going. And so what I started doing was I had a corporate job at the time. So I was like, I have to focus on my corporate job and I'm going to focus on my podcast. So when you put all of your focus into something, it's amazing what tends to happen, because so often women, especially, we think we can juggle so many different balls in the air. And that's really not the case, because when that happens is you're doing all these things and you may be doing really well. It's just, you're not really in that zone of genius. So because I focused all of my energy into my podcast, what started happening was last January, I was teetering around 2,000 downloads a month. By really getting into that zone of genius, by January and then February, I have over 125,000 downloads monthly, and it's growing exponentially. I'm now in the top 0.5% globally. One of the top happiness podcasts in the world. I became the managing director for the Los Angeles Tribune Global Podcast Network, which has just been phenomenal. And the list just goes on and on. And so let me tell you about what the zone of genius is and how you can discover that so that you can get into that zone. Because what I learned was that, we all have gifts, right? I am gifted at coaching people. It's something I've been doing for decades. Actually, I started coaching when I was 16 years old. The thing is that while that's a gift it's a talent of mine, and that's when I'm in my zone of excellence, it's not really my zone of genius. So now what I've done is I've melded my coaching and my podcasting world. I've married the two together. And now for like less than $1,000, I am training experts all over the world to launch, grow, and monetize not just a podcast, but a conscious podcast, right? Where it's all in alignment and it's lifting up the world. So make sure you have a pen and paper handy, because I'm going to dive into so much amazing content today and give you some really amazing golden nuggets. But before we do, I'd like to just take a moment, because you guys have been watching for a few hours now. Let's just take a moment to reset and open your mind. And I'm just going to do a quick guided meditation. Okay, so I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath in and exhale. Take another deep breath in and slowly exhale. Now, as you continue your deep breathing, I want you to imagine meeting your future self for the very first time. How does she look? What do you want to ask her? Keep taking those deep breaths in and see if she shares any wisdom with you. Open up your mind. What wisdom does she want to tell you? What does she want for you? Is she asking you questions like, have you really achieved what you set out to achieve? Are you living your life on purpose, with purpose? And she's letting you also know that she's always there for you to guide you. So take another deep breath. Exhale slowly. And now open your eyes. All right. I hope you feel invigorated and ready to take in hopefully some information that's new to you. If not, it's a reminder, right? It's a reminder to let's just get this going. Okay. So your zone of genius, how I like to define it, is it is where your it is where your natural talents intersect with what brings you your joy and a deep sense of purpose. Okay. But like, imagine that you're in a meeting room surrounded by really brilliant minds and influential voices. And as the discussion unfolds, you find yourself passionately engaged, ideas flowing effortlessly, and your intuition is guiding you with solid clarity, right? In those moments, you feel a sense of alignment. It's almost like a magnetic force that's pulling you toward your true calling. Okay. And that true calling is your zone of genius, right? So in discovering and embracing that zone of genius is not only crucial for your personal fulfillment, but it's also essential for making a lasting impact in your journey of life, right? And so when you operate from this place, what happens is you find that deep sense of purpose, your authenticity shines, your creativity soars, and your ability to influence and inspire others just reaches totally new heights. So after my own journey of the last 34 years, working with clients and figuring it out for myself, I came up with a formula for discovering your zone of genius. And that is self-awareness plus self-love plus spirituality equals your zone of genius. Those three things are so important, and it's what I focus on a daily basis. Now, I'm going to spend most of the time on self-awareness because that is the most important part. And here's why. So what I have found in my work over the last 34 years is that most people are always, right, in their zone of excellence, right? If you're an entrepreneur, if you're doing what you want to do, you're in your zone of excellence. But the problem is that most people still become frustrated, stressed, overwhelmed, and they still may experience bouts of anxiety. And I'm not alone. I experience, they say the happiest people experience the full range of emotions most of the time, and that's okay. So why is it that people find themselves in that zone of excellence, but they find it hard to get into that zone of genius? So the thing is the National Science Foundation says that people can experience about 60,000 thoughts per day. Now I want to ask you, out of those thoughts per day, and there's a range. If you Google it, some say it's 100,000, 80,000. I just go with 60,000 because they've kind of broken it down, and there's like different little nuances. But let's just go with 60,000. So out of those 60,000 thoughts a day, how many do you think of those thoughts per day are negative? All right. If you want to tell me in the chat what your thought is, that's great. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you 80% of your thoughts every single day are negative. But here's the thing, 95% of those negative thoughts are going to repeat themselves the next day and the next day and the next day. So when you're looking at your self-awareness, what it is all about is learning how to transmute those negative thoughts into positive ones. And I always talk about frequency, right? We all have a vibrational frequency that surrounds us. Okay. So what that means is every time you have a negative thought, such as anger, frustration, shame, comparison, jealousy, regret, or greed, your vibrational frequency is down here. It's at a very low state. On the other side is when you're thinking and feeling, right? Because these are all feelings, the thoughts in our head, but they're also feelings. So when you're feeling a positive state, such as love, joy, proud, valued, appreciated, abundant, successful, confident, courageous, powerful, cherished, and lastly, gratitude, right? Your vibrational frequency is at a high state, and that is your zone of genius. So, the thing is it can be challenging to practice self-awareness because it does require honesty and acceptance towards yourself. All right. So when you can take the time to think and observe your own thoughts, it's going to help you to better understand what influences your decisions, your habits, and your behaviors. But it can also help you recognize any harmful thoughts or limiting beliefs that may be impeding your growth. So limiting beliefs, you know, we all have them. They can be detrimental to your life because they stop you from exploring the possibilities that exist beyond your comfort zone. And I always say, in order to grow, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. All right. Well, what they do is they hold you back from making progress because you doubt your capabilities. They instill feelings of insecurity, and you can be overcritical of yourself and inhibit your ability to take risks. Let me tell you about a big limiting belief that I had, because I told you I walked away from the personal development space for 12 years. I come back in 2021 when my book was released and my podcast was launched. And I look around me, especially on social media, right? You got to be careful because social media is where those limiting beliefs are really going to pop in, because you look at people's perceived great life, right? They're only showing you, most people are only showing you how amazing their life is. And so even to this day, I spend very little time on social media because it's just not a healthy space to be. So what was happening with me was that I'm looking at all of these young, beautiful women, and I'm like, what am I doing? And I started feeling as though I was too old to be in this space. Okay, this was in 2021. Here I am, 3 years later. I'm in the fourth year of my podcast. Everything is exploding, right? I'm about to launch my podcast on television, and it's going to be streaming on E360 television, on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple, Samsung, LG TV. And I'm 58 years young. And so it's okay. Like, that limiting belief was holding me back because it took me 2 years to not just figure out my podcast and how to grow it and monetize it. It was those 2 years of working on myself and smashing those limiting beliefs. So it's all about being aware in the moment, right? I always say life happens while we're busy making other plans. And when life happens, that is when you need to pause, all right? Because what you're experiencing is real, all right? Something happens, it's real, it's painful. You have to acknowledge those feelings. That's so important, because I'm not talking about shoving those down. When I hit rock bottom 34 years ago, it was because I was shoving all of my childhood years and the trauma. I had multiple traumas as a child, and I was shoving them all down. I wasn't dealing with it. And so you have to deal with those emotions. But then you work through it, and then you focus on everything you have to be grateful for, right? Because there's always someone that has it worse off than you, right? So when you practice gratitude, the negative feelings are going to dissipate, and it's going to raise your vibrational frequency. And that is when your peace is going to be restored, because this is all about raising your vibrational frequency. All right, so let's jump into self-love. Self-love is so important. And I remember sitting in front of a therapist 25 years ago, 35 years ago. And she was talking to me about self-love. And I'm like, well, of course I love myself. I didn't understand what that really meant. So I'm going to give you a few tips on how to find your self-love and achieve a healthy level of it. All right, so first, take the time to recognize your strengths, your skills, and your talents, right? What comes easily to you? Where do you consistently excel? Seek feedback from mentors so that you can gain a clear perspective and embrace those strengths. You know, it goes back to my podcast. That is when I'm in my zone of genius. That's a gift for me. It's not just a talent, it's a gift. And I've finally, I learned to embrace it. Uncover your passion. What ignites a fire within you? What makes your heart sing and brings you immense joy? right? Those passions are going to serve as a guiding light on your journey, right? Going back to my podcast, it's a passion of mine. I love it, right? Doing things that you truly love ignites your soul. It feeds you. It makes your heart sing, right? Keep a confidence journal. This is so important because as women, we're so hard on ourselves. And I found myself every morning, this is right when I was hitting my burnout stage. Every morning while my coffee was brewing, I'd sit there and I'd be like, I didn't do this yesterday. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. And I recognized it. I was like, what am I doing? That's like self-sabotage to the nth degree, right? Instead, once I became aware of that negative thought pattern, now every morning I'm like, oh my gosh, I did this yesterday. I did this, and I celebrate. Now I do it every night before I go to bed. I write in a journal and I celebrate everything that I accomplished each day. And I think about what I'm going to accomplish the next day, right? What I also do is when, I have a girlfriend that is always sending me cards. And there was recently, I was in a situation where I was just, it was one of those things. It was a life happen situation and it triggered something from my childhood. And I worked through it. And next thing you know, I get this card in the mail and it says, inhale, exhale. And I have it sitting here on my desk to remind me, right? But I have a whole stack of cards and notes that people say. If they email me something, I'll print it out. And I have a place where I can go back, because we all have those days where those limiting beliefs come in. All right. Next, be gentle with yourself. Talk to yourself the way you would talk to a small child, right? It's all about progress, not perfection. And lastly, look in the mirror and tell yourself you love you. Just look in the mirror and say, look in your eyes in the mirror and say, I love you. If that proves to be too hard, just give yourself a high five. Just start doing that, right? When we give other people a high five, it feels really good. Give yourself a high five. Now, lastly, I'm going to talk about spirituality, and creating a spiritual practice is where the rubber meets the road. It's where everything comes together. So we all hopefully have some sort of practice. You have a power that's higher than yourself, whether it's Jesus, Buddha, Allah, the universe, whatever it is. All right. I'm talking in generic purposes here. You've got it. That connection is so critical. So try starting your day with meditation. All right. Start with 5 minutes, increase the length over time. You want to focus on your third eye here. I like to just do a meditation where I'm imagining my best day ever. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Remember, it's all about that feeling that we have inside. Focus on that incredible feeling of experiencing your best day ever. Now, let me give you a pro tip, because I've been meditating for a couple of decades now. The biggest issue that people have with meditating is they can't stop their brain, right? And mine is on hyper mode most of the time. So imagine that there's a television on in another room, right? You can hear it, it's there, but you're not focusing on what it's saying. That's what I want you to think about when you try to meditate. It's over there. Your thoughts are over there. It's going on. They're going to be there, and bring your focus back to your meditation. Have a mantra that you repeat to yourself daily. I like to use Ho'oponopono. So Ho'oponopono, just briefly, is an ancient Hawaiian healing practice that Dr. Joe Vitale, who I was so blessed and grateful to have him on my podcast, and we got to talk about it. I mean, talking about a kid in a candy store, I was just so excited to have this conversation, because he's the one that brought it to the world, right? And I don't have time to go into all of it, but you can Google it. Ho'oponopono. It's H''OPONOPONO, something like that. It's Ho. I think it makes be HO apostrophe. I have it as HO apostrophe OPONOPONO. So Ho'oponopono is a mantra, and it's I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. All right. It addresses every aspect to raise your vibrational frequency. So you say, I love you because what you're doing is you're acknowledging your love for your higher power, for the universe, God, Allah, Buddha, Jesus, whoever that that is for you. You're saying, I love you. And then you're saying, I'm sorry. And this is where it trips most people up, because they're like, I didn't do anything wrong. Why would I say I'm sorry? Well, you're just acknowledging that you had a negative thought, right? And you're just acknowledging that negativity was present in your mind. Next, you say, please forgive me, right? You want to ask for forgiveness. Forgiveness is the most powerful tool you will ever have. It's all about releasing and clearing your mind. It is not about the other person unless it's about you, right? Forgiveness is critical. And lastly, you say thank you, because that is expressing gratitude. So I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Next, you want to make sure you're embracing your intuition and your gut feelings, right? We've got 3 brains. You've got your brain up here, your heart, and you have your gut, your stomach. All right, it's real. There's neurons that are connecting and transmitting all the way through all the time. So your intuition is that whisper within that offers guidance and insight beyond logic, right? So trust it. Let it guide you towards your decisions and your actions. It can be such a powerful compass on your path to discovering that zone of genius. So lastly, practice that deep breathing exercises, right? Try setting an alarm on your phone to remind you, right, throughout the day. So the gist of it is, as a woman, right, whether you're in leadership, you're the household rock that keeps your family going, you work for someone else, you work for yourself, it doesn't matter. As a woman, we're all in leadership. We all have leadership roles, no matter what it looks like and how it shows up. But your zone of genius is what is going to hold the key to unlocking your full potential, right? And leaving a mark on the world. So by embarking on this journey, you're stepping into your authentic self, your power, you're ready to make a difference that only you can make, right? And if you can commit to yourself to focus on this formula for 30 days, new habits are going to be created. Your life is going to begin to flow effortlessly, and miracles will begin to appear in your life. And I just want to mention a quote stated by a mentor of mine, Craig Siegel. He always says, remember, in life, you don't get what you want, you get what you're committed to. And that, my friends, is your zone of genius. So perfect timing. The beautiful ladies are back. Thank you so much.
Yes, Sandy, that was a wonderful speech altogether. I think our audience posted many questions. You,
Fantastic.
yeah, you drive, I mean, so many important points. Let me get one question for that. Give me 1 second. Yeah. The question for you is, how do I overcome anxiety and negative thoughts? Can you offer any tips? As I feel those are the barriers that are hindering me from reaching the goals.
So you started out, what is it? How to overcome negative
Yes,
thoughts?
yes,
Was that okay? That's an excellent question, because we all have so many negative thoughts every single day. It's all about being in touch with your thoughts and paying attention. All right. When you have that negative thought, I want you to ask yourself, now, everybody write this down. Is it true? Okay. Because these negative thoughts, it boils down to, it's your ego, right? There's 2 states of being. You're either in consciousness or you're in ego. When you're in consciousness, you're in your zone of genius. The ego is a part of us that's been in our DNA since the beginning of humankind. All right. It is that thing that's trying to protect us, right? It used to protect us from being eaten by a lion, tiger, or a bear, right? Today, it thinks it's protecting us, but what it's doing is it's limiting us. And it's like, oh no, don't take that step. You may get hurt or whatever. You need to take that ego, right? And remember that you're in the driver's seat, you're in control. So you put the ego in your back seat and you tell it to shut up. All right. Put the ego back there, because when you're questioning anything, you're coming from a state of ego, not from consciousness. So it's all about recognizing in the moment those thoughts. Is it true? No, it's not. Am I coming from a place of ego or consciousness? That's it. Literally boils down to that. Were there any other questions?
Very well answered. I see a comments flowing through in the
Yes,
chat.
thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was an amazing speech, an amazing time with you on Win Ideas Pro Summits Virtual Summit 2024. So we hope you enjoyed the session too, and will join the next sessions and encourage other speakers too. Thank you.
So please
All
join
right.
our next
Thank
session.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Sandy.